Okay, this is the X's podcast. This is the second episode. And I just want to start off by saying that we're streaming on pretty much all major platforms. And every Monday, if you miss us on Sunday night, every Monday you'll be able to find an audio version of this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So check it out on Monday morning on your way to work, whatever. Check out the X's podcast. All right. Very quick. We're going to actually try and update that intro. That's pretty sloppy intro, but we're working on it. So look forward to that. We're going to get right into it. We're going to call this the What's Viral segment. And right now, one of the things that's viral is the Damar Hamlin situation. We're both Bengals fans, not really relationship related necessarily, but we both love the Cincinnati Bengals. This has been something that's taken the nation by storm. And so we decided that we would talk a little bit about the Damar Hamlin hit or whatever you want to call it. Just event, I guess. And the first thing that we're going to get into is a viral video or clip of the famous commentators Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. So let's check this out, and then we'll react.
Skip tweeted something, and although I disagree with the tweet, hopefully Skip would take it down.
Yep. Time out. I'm not going to take it down because I stand by what I tweeted.
Skip, let me finish.
All right. Okay.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Go ahead. Let's go, Jen.
Okay.
I mean, I cannot even get through a monologue without you interrupting me.
Well,
you could have came back. Skip,
well, I thought,
Skip, just let.
I didn't know you were going to bring up
No,
this.
I was just going to say, Skip, I didn't want to yesterday to get into a situation where Damar Hamlin was the issue. We should have been talking about him and not get into your tweet. That's what I was going to do. But you can't let me finish my opening monologue without you interrupting.
So, for those of you that don't know, Skip tweeted right after this occurred, right after they took Damar Hamlin to the hospital. Skip had tweeted something in the effect of, how are they going to suspend or cancel this game with it being so close to the playoffs? And the way that it was interpreted by a lot of fans was that he was too concerned with the NFL playoffs and not enough concern with Damar. But to Skip's credit here, I think if you go back and you read it, I think he was misunderstood. Your thoughts, Ikea?
I mean, from the moment that show started, I sensed there was tension because you got to remember, Sharpe didn't show up that the day before. So it was, Skip by itself. And I think his frustration was, okay, he wasn't there the day before, like he didn't show up, whatever that reason was. And so when he came back, he was trying to express how he felt about it. And then with Skip kind of intervening, I think it was just like some frustration. Now, I get there's two sides to it. You had some people who felt one way, and then you had some people who agree, like, okay, the game got canceled, we'll do what it will. But I don't know. Like I just say that there probably was tension prior to that situation. That just didn't seem like a tweet led up to all of that. I think it was other things that maybe we weren't aware of, and why there was
there's stuff, and you might not be aware of this, but just I think it was like last week, Skip and Shannon were viral over an altercation that they had on air over Tom Brady. So they got into a discussion about Tom Brady, and Skip is a really big Tom Brady guy, and it turned into an argument between them, and Skip was defending Tom Brady, but in the process, he kind of took some low blows at Shannon, which Shannon's a Hall of Fame player, and the low blows, you could tell they hurt Shannon. You could tell. You can just tell it. What it appears to me we're seeing is a breakup.
I think that's what's happening too.
Yeah. And, ironic enough, the show being the X's, I think that Skip and Shannon are in that process of breaking up, and we are witnessing it live on TV every day. And that clip that we just watched, what a poor performance by them both. If you're watching television, and you turn on Undisputed, and this is the product that you get, man, it's just not a professional look. It's just not. And I can understand Shannon's frustration with it all, but just not what you expect to see from two professionals. Just a lot of animosity between them.
Yep, and I think the tweet definitely solidified that. However, I will say this though, with him not showing up the day before, because obviously the tweet went viral, I think he had the entire platform to himself. He could have just self-explained it. So with Sharpe returning, I think he probably should just let him say what he's gonna say, and then okay, speak back. But it was so quick. Literally, it was so quick. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen, but I do think that that show's not gonna, them two being together. I see a separation coming.
It's the unprecedented nature of what occurred in that game. Seems to be a lot of opinions, and the lack of protocol also is causing a lot of opinions. Another clip over on the ESPN side of things, Stephen A. Posed what I feel like is a loaded question to former Ravens player Bart Scott. We have a clip of that, so let's go ahead and take a look at it, see what Bart has to say.
Unintentionally, what exactly did Tee Higgins do last night to Hamlin?
Well, right before the tackle, he lowers his helmet and he kind of throws his body into his chest. He's standing up because he's thinking he's got to chase Tee Higgins at an angle to make a tackle. So he didn't expect Tee Higgins to launch his body back into him. It's one of those things, a lot of times you sit as a linebacker, the back comes through the hole, and he knows that contact's coming, so he lowers his helmet and you can't get underneath him. So he's able to get into you and your chest is exposed.
I just got to tell you, I've watched it. I've seen screenshots of it. I've played it over and over again. There was no ill intent by Tee Higgins whatsoever. And Bart got destroyed by media, by fans, by everybody, other professionals, for having this take on that hit or that tackle. It was just a freak thing. He's got a history. Bart Scott has a history of being against the Bengals, like on everything that he comments on everything, right? And in this particular case, he is just a bozo for taking it to this extreme, right? Like, I understand that you played against the Bengals. You might not like the organization, so on and so forth. But to act like there was any malice in the way that Tee Higgins basically got tackled, it's just, he's a clown for it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, because I'm going to agree with you. I do not feel like that hit put Hamlin in a situation. I'm sorry, but for those who watch football, we have seen major hits before, and people have literally stood back up behind them. So the hit like that, I mean, yeah, it looks away, especially like on the replays, slow motion, it looks away, but that was, I mean, we've saw way worse. And then
Right.
not to mention, like, even I posted yesterday, which someone made a great point, like, what happened to Hamlin, that's a terrible thing. We're glad he's doing better. But we're also forgetting about Higgins here. Like, how you think he feels? And then you got all this commotion surrounding it, and then thinking like, okay, did I cause that to happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, that can destroy someone's mental health. That can subject them to an anxiety when getting on the field. When just, I mean, literally, like, I feel like they literally just forgot all about him. Even though he wasn't injured, I understand, but it's like, this is football. This is a contact sport.
Yep. Yeah, it was crazy. I just, watching it, I know the rules fairly well. I've been watching football most of my life. They changed the rules recently to make it a penalty when you're leading with the helmet. The interesting thing about this was Damar got up. Nobody was hurt from the impact, and that was pretty apparent when it happened because he got up. He stood straight up. He bounced right back up.
Exactly.
It was like ready to go, and then it just like something occurred inside of him that caused him to collapse. So to blame it on the hit without having any evidence at all. When you look at the footage, there's no malice, there's no leading with the helmet, and so on. It's just a bad take. It's just a bad take by Bart. I think that this is his former player biased, getting in the way of his commentary. So, again, what we're discussing here, more about the fallout, more about, what's occurred after this whole ordeal, some playoff implications around how they decided to cancel this game. For the Bengals, the way you could look at it is they pretty well got screwed. And I have a clip here from the local Cincinnati TV station where they kind of outline that. So I'll go ahead and play that for the people that are not real big football fans.
Go back to Monday afternoon. The Bengals at that time had a path, at least a path, to the number 1 seed in the AFC for the playoffs, which basically means if you get that number 1 seed, you get a bye in the first round and you get to play all your playoff games at home. Fast forward to today, 4 days later, not a single football game has technically been played, but yet the Bengals no longer have a path to that number 1 seed. By the way, they were named AFC North champs today, but yet they might not. There's a scenario where the Bengals may not end up with a single playoff game at home. You asked, though, about the coin flip thing. If the Bengals lose to the Ravens this weekend and then turn around to have to play the Ravens again in the first round of the playoffs, the location of that first round game would be decided by a coin flip. Even though the Bengals would technically have the better record and the better seed and the division championship, it would be decided again by a coin flip.
And so, the Bengals did win today. So luckily they avoided this scenario with this coin flip. But let's talk about sort of your reaction because I'll get into the ramifications with my story of as I was watching the game, sort of how everything played out, right? It goes into how I feel about how the NFL's handled this. But what are your thoughts about how the NFL handled this or even more so as you were sitting there watching the game, sort of what's going through your brain?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't get to catch tonight's game. So
not tonight's game, Damar Hamlin.
Okay, yeah, that part, I think canceling it was the right thing to do. As I said, I'm a fan of the sport, but when it comes to a life, it's far more important than watching a bunch of people run up and down the field making touchdowns. I mean, that was on both sides. And you seen even the Bengals showed their concern. There was upset amongst everybody. You even had Bengals fans outside the hospital, and that said a lot. But I do feel like, in which I even explained to you, I said, the Bengals are going to get the short end of the stick behind this. No matter which way you spin it, they're always going to revert it back to this game and the situation that happened. And I don't feel like that's fair because leading up to this game, the Bengals have done well, if you ask me.
Yeah, they've done really well.
Exactly. Like, we worked hard, and then now it's kind of looking like, well, if you make it, it's only because of this, or it's because, and I don't agree with that.
They had already clinched a playoff spot. But I'll tell you, as I was watching this game, and I do this a lot, I was in a group chat with a bunch of other friends of mine, and there's a collection of guys there, Steelers fans, Cowboys fans, Browns fans, and we watch the games. A lot of the times we watch the games together. And when this happened, first of all, when it happened, one of my friends immediately recognized when they cut the commercial, he's like, that was different. There was something different about that hit, right? And then I went up to the TV and hit the rewind, and then I took like a video of the hit and the whole thing playing out, and it become apparent to everybody in the group chat really, really quickly that this was something different. This was something weird and different. As they started to sort of like try to go through procedure and protocol, there was a moment there where they thought, we all thought that they were going to play the game, right? They were going to continue playing the game. And before our coach, Zach Taylor, approached the Bills coach, I was like, if I was talking about a forfeiture, right? Because the Bills coach waved Zach Taylor over and said, come here. And based on interviews from Zach Taylor, he said, I can't continue. I have to go be with Damar. I need to go to the hospital. It was that traumatic, right? That there was just no way that he could wrap his head around continuing this game. Okay. And my thought in that is, if Zach Taylor really pushes the envelope, which thank God he didn't. Thank God he did the right thing, right? But if he does push the envelope and he says to the league, well, my guys are ready to play, my guys want to finish this game, then the Bills are left to forfeit. They're forfeiting the game, right? But they have that in between with one another. They collectively decide to suspend the game. And, now afterwards, I was so impressed with the way that this all panned out. I drew up this really long thing about how great the NFL had handled this, because I seen so many ways that they could finish the game. They could have finished it that Thursday night. They could double up Monday night. They could push the playoffs back a week, right? There's a week in between the Super Bowl. There's so many ways that you can play this game, okay? And the Bengals were in a position to take the number 1 seed. If they beat the Bills, they get a bye week and home field advantage. Well, that's out the window, which I'm okay with that, because as you said, life is way more important than seedings in the playoffs, right? The thing that frustrates me is they just poured salt on the wound by getting the owners together and voting to say, if the Bengals, even with the cancellation, if the Bengals lose to the Ravens, they're then going to make them coin flip for home field advantage. It's like, what ended up happening, and this is the truth, because the Bengals, they go on to beat the Ravens, very well could have beat the Bills in that game. They've already beat the Chiefs. The Bengals are being punished for doing the right thing. Zach Taylor did the right thing. He didn't put his foot in the sand here and say, no, we need to play this game. We need to finish this game. That's not what the organization did, right? They did the right thing. And here the league is punishing them every which way they can with the seedings. But this is a Bengals team that I am convinced, with their back against the wall, they don't care. They're just that daggone good, right? Their whole mentality is they got to play us. That's how daggone good they are. So,
yeah, and I agree with it. And I also look at it too, like, because you have to think about it. And I'm glad I'm glad he's okay. What was it, Wednesday when they removed the tube, or was that Thursday? I don't know. But either which way,
part of it a lot closer than me.
Huh? Yeah, I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday, because I remember posting about it. But here's the thing too, like, you cannot expect to see him back on the field.
No.
That's what a lot of people aren't thinking. He is a major liability.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because he's young, but this is the situation. Like, some people are thinking like, okay, it gets out, goes back on there. So why should the Bengals suffer for something that happened that they absolutely had nothing to do with? And I stand on that. That hit did not do that. That was something else that was going on. We don't know the details to it. But like I said, if you watch football, you have seen far worse.
Right.
And people, same thing he did, jump back up and they keep on playing. So in this situation, it's like this. The Bengals were damned if they do, damned if they don't. So just do what you got to do. Get us back to the Super Bowl because we're going back. I'm saying we're going back.
Yeah.
2 years in a row.
So Michael Ports in our comments says good evening. And Krista says, put the kids to bed just to be here for this live. How about that? Let's put that one up there. Put the kids to bed just to be here for this live. That is incredible. We appreciate that support. You guys have no idea how much we appreciate your support around this idea. And at the end of the day, the way that this podcast is really to help people. That's what we're wanting to do. We feel like our life experiences, the way I explain it to people is like the internet is filled with shocking things. Right. It's like everything that you scroll across, every podcast that you see, it's this guy or that guy saying the most shocking thing. And I think we've all become numb to that sort of shock value thing. And now when we come across clips of people saying rational and logical things, that is shocking to us. It's like we're so used to the shocking stuff that hearing somebody speak in a logical way, it's like, holy crap, is this someone that's actually speaking, rationally? And that's what we want to do. We want to shock people with just logical thinking and, do the right thing, talk about topics and solutions that can help people. That's what it's all about. Moving on to the next segment here. And this one is, we're going to call this the DV segment or domestic violence segment. Dana White was caught in a nightclub on New Year's Eve hitting his wife in the face. So let's check it out.
Video published by TMZ shows White and his wife Ann in a VIP area of a nightclub during a New Year's Eve celebration in Cabo, Mexico.
There's never, ever an excuse for a guy to put his hands on a woman. My wife and I have been married for almost 30 years. We've known each other since we were 12 years old. There was definitely a lot of alcohol involved, but that's no excuse. I literally am making no excuses for this thing at all. It's never happened before. It's the first time that it's ever happened. And people are going to say what they're going to say. It just is what it is. Whatever people do say, it's deserved.
Skip tweeted something, and although I disagree with the tweet, hopefully Skip would take it down.
Yeah, we didn't want to go into that one. Anyway, so yeah. What do you think? Dana White, people are going to say what they're going to say.
Yeah, they are, but actions have consequences too. So you have to be aware of that, whether there's alcohol involved or not. That's a slippery slope in itself, what you do when consuming alcohol,
I just want to say I'm not condoning what his wife did by slapping him, because you can see in the footage that she struck him first. But I have to tell you, when I see that footage, it freaking infuriates me. It just boils me because I've been in bad relationships. I've been in situations where alcohol is involved. I've been in some of the worst domestic situations that a man can be in. And I have never slapped or hit a woman. There is no excuse. What ticks me off is the fact that he says outright, there's no excuses for this. But then goes on to make a bunch of excuses, saying, well, we've been together. We've known each other since we were 12 years old, and alcohol was involved. And if you're not going to make excuses, then don't make excuses. Anytime I see a man hitting a woman, it just makes me, I just get angry.
And she was wrong. Like I said, I get it. People get drunk, things like that, but you still have to be held accountable for the role you play. She hit him first. He retaliated by hitting her back. And I know we look at it, it's the gender makeup. The man will always be physically stronger than the woman, not to mention his size and everything. I do feel like sometimes it's a reflex, and that's the sad part. Sometimes it's a reflex. They catch you off guard, but if you can separate yourself, that's what you should do, because of situations like, especially when you're in certain professions, they're not going to let you live it down regardless of how you two, like I said, get drunk, beat each other up tomorrow. Oh, no big deal. That's just how we love each other. As we said, that's our love language. Other people may not see it like that. They're going to talk about it, especially if someone else caught that on camera. It wasn't like they was on live together and she hauled off and smacked them. Someone else seen it. And what is people going to do when they see certain people, especially a celebrity athlete? They're running to the internet. They're posting it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, the kind of frustrating thing I think about this is like the coverage. If this is if this is anybody other than Dana White, they're getting, there's serious consequences for this, as there should be.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the way that the UFC is set up, because he's essentially king of the UFC and he has major deals with outfits like ESPN, and he's all buddy with, the commentators, like there's no consequences for this guy. The coverage by ESPN on this says it all, right? It's pathetic. It's pathetic. We got Stephen A. Let's go ahead and take a look at this coverage. This is ESPN covering Dana White hitting his wife.
I just think it's important that if you're going to sit on this platform, you owe it to your audience to be honest. Dana White is not just somebody I know in sports, nor you. He's a friend.
Yeah.
I love him. I just wish the best for him and his family. He knows how wrong he was.
I'm not a part of the whole cancel culture, and I don't judge people by their worst moment. Yeah. And he has a beautiful family.
Yes, he does.
And I wish the best for them moving forward.
Come on.
That was bias. It was admitting bias without saying, hey, I'm biased in the situation. That was definitely biased. And here's the thing. It's cool to say that, but even like I said, with his endorsement deals and things like that, they may stand behind him. But if the people rally to say, cancel these people because they're supporting DV, I guarantee you they'll come back and sing a different tune and let out a dissertation. We do not in any way condone domestic violence of any kind. I mean, it's like the same narrative, but right now, no one's saying that. But if it happens down the line, don't be surprised, like if they try to separate ties with him because of that. But yeah, that was major biased on that half. That's why it's tricky sometimes when situations happen and people that know the individual, the amount of likeness you have can cloud your judgment, and you have to be careful about that. So yeah, that was bias. I should just said, I'm going to be biased about no big deal.
Yeah, it's total crap. It's total crap. And I go back to my own personal situation. I've had women take keys and hide them so that I couldn't leave the house. I mean, in the middle of a domestic dispute. I've been backed against the wall by women every worst possible way that you could imagine. And I never did what that man did to his wife. Never. So there's not a sympathetic bone in my body for men that's quote unquote have a reflex for that. I just don't. Like, I don't have that reflex, whatever that reflex is. When a woman hits me, my instinct is not to hit her back. It's to get away. It's to walk away. It's to figure out a way out. Even shove, but to slap in the face like that, come on. There's no excuse for that. I don't have any.
And then too, because if you like what he does for a living, so with the extensive amount of training that you have, you knew that was your wife, you knew that was a woman, because let that had been a guy that smacked him, he probably would have picked him up and body slammed and all type of things. So there was a thought process there while he still managed to, slap her back. But two is why women literally, for the sake of your safety, because every guy is not going to react the same.
Yep.
and you cannot control the narrative once you put out what you put out, just literally don't try to do it.
Keep your
Just
hands
don't.
to yourself. Like the difference between a man and a woman is night and day when it comes to physicality. You take a guy and a girl that are at the same height and you look at their weight differences. That's all the evidence you need. It's just the presence of testosterone. The mere presence of testosterone makes men, dominant in that kind of situation. So I believe that's to protect women, not to hurt them. So what we got here? Comments?
Yeah, someone had asked the question if it was Ronda Rousey, would you give the guy a pass for fighting back? Well, here's my thing. If I'm being honest. If a woman hauls off and hits a man once, right, and he controls his reflex not to hit her back, he's trying to walk away from the situation, and she's following. Here goes the thing: restrain her, because sometimes women take advantage of knowing, like, he's a guy. He'd be wrong if he hit me back. But if you're steady swinging, you're getting what you're asking for. Like I said, every man is not built the same mentally. They're not going to look at it because you're a woman. I'm not going to hit you there like you want to act like a man. You're going to get treated like a man. So you have to tread lightly. So if she's, and what if she puts him in a headlock? There are such things. I got to defend myself too. Because, but a slap, I'm going to look at it like this. Look, just try to get away. If they're following and hitting, that's a different story. If someone, obviously they weren't by themselves, someone could have literally intervened, gotten middle of them. But in certain situations, we've seen it.
I'm going to address the comment. So Ronda Rousey is the exception to the rule. Okay. So generally speaking, men are dominant over women physically. As I said, testosterone, biology, right? That's just the way nature made us. That's not to suggest, and that's generally, right? Generally speaking, men are more physical than women. That's not to say that there aren't exceptions to the rule. Ronda is an exception. She's a UFC fighter. She's a trained fighter, right? And so if she hauls off and hits a man, right, I'm still keeping that rule. No, you don't hit her back. Just because generally speaking, that's not okay to do. So you can't throw an exception out there to me and expect me to just throw out the rule. You don't hit women. I've been told that since I could, like, my very first memories. I can remember my dad telling me, you don't hit girls. You don't do that. And there's a reason for that line of thinking. Like, I don't got any sympathy for guys that do that. I just don't have any.
But like I said, though, you got some of them take advantage of it. So, and that's why I said women have to take accountability for their actions as well. Just like the wife, she's not exempt. She was wrong.
She was.
Whatever y'all was arguing about. I mean, you keep your hands to yourself. You
know what it made that clip a lot better? If he wouldn't have hit her. Because then we'd just be staring at Dana White's wife hitting and slapping him in the face, right? Then she's the one that gets shamed. She's the one that, you know what, you did wrong. But as soon as he raises a hand back at her, forget it, dude. There's no sympathy for me. But then, to go back to the point that we were making about his position and there not being consequences for this. Interesting enough, in the last week, we have another example of a man that lost his job over domestic violence. And this is how ESPN covered his situation.
Everybody, I'm Myron Metcalf, ESPN college basketball reporter, radio host. This is one of the biggest in-season storylines I think we've covered. Chris Beard terminated by the University of Texas on Thursday. He'd been arrested on a felony domestic violence allegation charge about a month ago involving his fiance. His fiance later recanted and refuted the initial police report, said Chris Beard might have acted in self-defense, but Texas in its decision on Thursday said, we don't care about the criminal proceedings. We made this decision on our own.
So there you have it. There is no love and dovey. We love this coach, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff you heard Stephen A saying about Dana White. There's none of that. None of that in that clip.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very, straightforward, here's what happened. It's journalism. You have on one side, you have them, covering for the guy. And then in this case, there's no sympathy or concern about this guy's family, so on and so forth. Come on, the wife even recanted. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And look how there's double standards here. That's all there is to it. And the sad thing is, Dana is so much bigger than a major university coach, right? His position is so much more influential and has so much more power than just a coach for a program.
Yeah. But see, the only way to stop that though is these shows would have to tell the people that are hosting them, personal feelings don't enter into the business. Like, you just got to be honest. But because there's so many friendships within certain industries and they don't want to rub that shoulder the wrong way, that's why they're going to do that. But if it was anyone else, they would be honest. They would be honest on both sides. It was wrong, regardless of what the wife said. He didn't mean to hurt her. That, of course, that's kind of common when it comes to domestic violence situations. They tend to defend the person that is hurting them. That tends to happen, but it doesn't make it any more right. It's still wrong. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a contradictory on one, but we know how Stephen A is. Like,
Yeah.
That man.
I wouldn't doubt if Dana White and Stephen A says in that interview or that episode of First Take, he says, I talked to Dana today. He's my friend, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't doubt one bit if there wasn't an IOU in there, because that was the coverage that Stephen A gave there was just so pathetic. It was so pathetic. And it almost felt like he told Dana outright, I got your back, man. I got your back. I'm going to help, stamp this down, but you owe me one, sort of deal.
But
that's really what it feels like when
I don't think it's going to help, because, I mean, come on now. Stephen Smith, who is he now?
Stephen A?
I mean, yeah, I'm saying, well, now where he's at, it's like, regardless of what you say, you're not the only person up on ESPN. Like, when you go off, someone else is coming on, and they're going to talk about the same thing too. So there's going to be more than one narrative pushed. So them being biased doesn't outweigh what everybody else is thinking.
Don't make any mistake about it. Stephen A has a lot of influence.
I'm saying, but I'm saying he won't be the only one to cover it.
Right.
So.
Right.
There's still going to be opinions, and it was so obvious. That's why he should have just said, I'm just going to be biased and say, I stand by them.
Right.
Like, seriously?
Yep. You're right. So just to put out there, we're trying to do a call-in segment, and here shortly, we're going to be taking phone calls for opinions on any of the topics that we've covered or stories that you have, whether they be relationship, domestic violence, anything that relates to anything that we're talking about, and you want to call in and just talk to us about it, feel free to do so. We're going to move on to our next segment, and then after this segment, we'll be taking those phone calls. So.
Why, Daddy? That explains why I did what I did. Now, I would not be coming to get y'all no more. Yes, I am home. I'm not coming to get y'all no more. I don't care about how y'all feel. You don't care about the kid that's not home. So that shit. I'm not coming no more.
So, just a brief description of that clip. It's a little boy that's called his father and is asking his father to come and get him so he can see him. And the father is saying, no, I'm not coming to get you anymore because your mother signed up for child support. And I told her, if she did that, that I wouldn't be coming and getting you anymore. And you can hear the pain in that little boy's voice.
Mm-hmm.
He's broken. That little boy is broken. It's ridiculous.
Definitely wasn't the right thing to do. And later on down the line, he'll have to answer for that. It was a lot of different, well, most people that I seen behind this, because that was a question posed, was the dad right or wrong? A lot were saying he was wrong, but then you had one woman who I seen, and I mean, she was making video after video defending her so against the mother and the child by literally saying this guy wasn't wrong because his feelings were hurt. So hurt people, and his feelings matter too. That may be the case, but you're talking about a child. You want to be mad at the parent, the other parent, be mad at them. But one thing you don't never do is put your child in the middle of grown folks' business. You do not do, especially their parent. And then why in the world, like you could have just not answered the phone because yeah, she did make the statement that it was obvious the mother set him up to call the father right after that situation because obviously he did sound angry. Again, you could have chose not to answer it. But so even if you did decide to answer it, maybe thinking it was the mom and y'all was going to go back and forth again, when you realized it was your son on the phone, you should have just said, listen, I'll talk to you later when I see you or whatever. But you don't never sit up and allow child support to be the reason that you remove the rest of your fatherly duties as if the only duty you have is to provide financially for the child. You are absolutely wrong for that. And you get no sympathy points from me for doing that because that is still your child at the end of the day. Be mad at the mom, not the child.
I always say that, in my opinion, there's two things that parents do, right? They provide for their children and they spend time with their children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Those are the two major things. Sometimes I can understand if you're lacking in one, right? If it's difficult for them to find a really good job and provide for their kids, they can make up for that by spending time with them, right? In the reverse, if you have a position where maybe you can't spend time with your child because you work so much, but you're providing them a good life, I can understand that, right? But at the end of the day, your job is both to the best of your ability. And this guy is outright saying that he has the ability to spend time with his kids, but he's not going to because mommy signed you up for child support.
It was about, well, it went for more money. I guess that was what she was asking for, more money. So that's what I guess she must have gotten her grant for that. Like they granted her the ability to get more money from him. And so that's what made him
started
mad.
making more money, probably. Yeah, he
But
probably started making.
still, but now she was wrong putting it on the internet.
The thing that just, to me, being a father, I just don't get how you could say that to your child. Like, I love my children so much that I want to spend time with them. If I didn't have them every day like I have custody of my children. If I didn't have them every day, I that's all I would spend my time thinking about is trying to get them and spend time with them. Like it would consume me. I would be obsessed about it. And the fact that this guy is just like able to just be like, well, your mom upped the child support, so I'm not coming to get you. It just blows my mind.
Exactly, because he is basically like he was saying he was absolved of fatherly duties based on money. That means that you're holding money above your child, and you should not do that. I don't care if it was you had a daughter or whatever, you just pretty much, and then you got to remember how your parents treat you is how you will grow up to treat your children. And we've seen that all the time, that learned behavior. They grow up, they have kids, they do it the same way, and they use the excuse, well, it was done to me, and look how I turned out. you needed some therapy too.
Yeah.
So that to me, I'm sorry, but I get this child support thing is a situation, but that when you're not in the household, the child has a right to be afforded for, right? But now, not to say some people don't go overboard and it's a get back. So instead of letting them win, because you're not hurting the mom, she's
No.
getting the child support. You're hurting
Right.
the child, so why let
That's
her
right.
win? If anything, make her mad by you
And
still showing up.
in addition to that, the boy's voice is cracking.
And he's crying.
He's crying. You could tell he's heartbroken, and it breaks my heart that that
Mhm.
father has it in his ability to take that pain away from his child, and he just refuses to. Right? How can you be? I mean, I can understand being frustrated with a co-parent over child support. I totally get that. And we'll get into that with the next clip, right? But man, I just don't know how you can treat your baby like that. So let's check out this next one also on child support.
If this were reversed and I were a woman and my ex were a man, she would be sitting in a jail cell facing felony charges for assaulting me and our child, and she would be experiencing consequences for violating said protective order. The child support system is broken. Courts immediately presume the child living with the mother and the father paying child support with no visitation rights as the best option, when at very least I deserve 50-50 custody for the benefit of my child. We need to abandon this antiquated and broken system for a gender-neutral system that outlines the true merits of a potential parental figure within a child's life.
So that's a veteran of combat war. And earlier in that clip, he actually says that the family court system was more traumatic to him than war itself because he had no power over it. So you hear this a lot from fathers, that they think that the system is antiquated and that it is biased to men. And I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? Is it biased to men?
In certain cases, I feel like it is. A lot of times, especially if the mother gets an attorney, because if you let's say they go to court, whatever, they're trying to get child support, and neither one of them have an attorney, there may be a set amount that they give. But if she goes back and gets an attorney, pays for an attorney and go gets one, she can up it. And from a personal experience, I lived through that. And I literally said that you should have beat her to the punchline because this was coming, because it was personal. It wasn't about I need to afford for these kids. It was, how can I take more money from you because I'm not making as much money as you are. And that's what she did. So it went from a certain amount upwards to almost $900 a month because she went and paid for an attorney. So there is some bias in that. Yes, I do feel like in some cases, some men do get screwed on the end of child support.
Yeah.
Especially.
I would agree with that. I believe that the process itself, it doesn't favor men at all. And I would agree that by default, there should be no automatic child support to one parent or the other. It should be a situation where when it's brought before the court, they're looking at the best interest of the child, and they only issue child support if the court can determine that it's necessary. That's my viewpoint on it. When it comes to child support in general, having two kids and, being someone who would be the recipient of child support, I'm not a real big believer in pursuing it. I think that the mothers out there that I think they destroy themselves, right? When they try to pursue child support. And what I mean by that is, like, personally, I don't pursue child support because what I see it does to people that do pursue child support. They become consumed and obsessed with child support on both sides. On both sides, the women start to feel entitled and the men start to feel resentful. And personally, my mental health is not worth the pursuing of child support. I'm not going to destroy myself trying to chase down something that I might not ever see anyways. And I don't see how it's a benefit to my children to have me in a mental state, a wreck, resentful and spiteful because by golly, I deserve this money and I should get this money. I'm just worried about me. I'm just worried about me and what I can provide for my children. If my co-parent can add to that, great. Right. But at the end of the day, I'm waking up and I'm looking at my own self in the mirror and saying, how can I continue to earn more? How can I continue to provide better for my children? I just don't really see that there's going to be a lot of fruit from chasing down my co-parent and getting her for child support. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. I think
what I would say is everybody's situation is different because no one household is the same as the next door neighbors, which we know that. So, but like I said, you have a group of people out here who literally do not wait. And that's one of the biggest issues that I've asked so many times. Why do you wait for the woman? Because most of the time the woman ends up being the primary parent. In most cases, that's usually what happens. Why do you wait on her to go put you on child support? Why do you not take it upon yourself to just go on and do it, get it out the way, and save yourself the hassle? But most guys tend to wait on the woman to make the first move, right? They're not going to think about it in any type of way. They're not even preparing for their lifestyle to even change in that situation. They just wait on the one. She may threaten it a few times, which I've seen it like, yeah, I'll put you on child support. I'll put you on child support. When they say it one time, believe them. So you beat them to the punchline. Go on down there, put yourself on it, because the longer you're out of the house and y'all are separated, guess what? That just created back pay. You weren't in the house at this time.
Yeah, right.
And you waited. She could wait 3 years and boom, finally get you. So now you got 3 years worth of child support plus whatever amount moving forward. But two, if we didn't have something to interfere, a lot of people would not pay their child support just because there's nobody enforcing it. You have people who are being enforced right now that still do not pay their child support.
No, you're right.
They don't get jobs because they don't want to have to pay child support. So some people would, just like how the system is being abused right now with it being utilized correctly, as people would say, it will get abused too if there's ways around. Like I said, if you say, I'm going to garnish your wages because you owe such set amount in back child support. So guess what they do? Well, I ain't going to get a job then.
Yeah.
So it's a tethering situation.
I guess the point that I would say is that some men are perfectly capable of having the children 50% of the time. Right. And that's my point. I don't think that child support needs to be enacted or automatic when the court could do a better job at evaluating the father's circumstances to figure out if he's capable of caring for the child 50% of the time. And what that would in effect do is free the mother up a lot more to go out and earn. Right. And nowadays there's all kinds of programs to improve yourself and get trades and get education and so on and so forth. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of guys are saying is that the default should be, or the thing that we should be reaching towards or trying to obtain, is that 50-50 agreement where I have them half the time, you have them half the time, and there's no child support at all. There's no need for it. Right.
But that would require for them to also take initiative to go after. Most men don't do that. They don't want to.
It shouldn't be that literally. That's the point. They shouldn't have to go after 50-50. The court should evaluate.
When you have two people that no longer can stand each other, you have to have something in the middle to be the mediator, because if two people can't even have a conversation in the same room, how are they going to agree with the child? So you got to have that other person, because if there is nothing there to do it, you are going to be in chaos. Look at some people who literally.
I'm not suggesting that we get rid of the system.
No, I'm not saying get rid of, but I'm saying there's
the system, when they have cases brought before them, they should handle it differently. Right. I'm not saying get rid of the child support system. I'm saying when there's a case brought before you because it can't be settled privately, right? That the system should reach for a 50-50 agreement until it determines that's unattainable. And then it should consider child support, right? But it shouldn't be a situation where the couple breaks up and we just immediately assume that the woman gets the child 100% of the time and the guy's got to pay upwards of 35% of his income to her because of that. It shouldn't be that way, right? Especially in a day and age where we're seeing more and more and more single fathers out there proving that men are capable of taking care of children.
That's why they have to take initiative to go back to court, whether they like it or not. One thing about it, you have to be deemed an unfit parent for them to say you get no visitation with your child, or something that puts you in jail, like you assaulted someone to where they feel you're a danger to that child. They're not going to stop you from being able to have visitation with your child. There has to be a reason there. But most of the time, there's not enough fight on their end. They're just the most they put up the fight is to argue on the phone with the mother. And most of the time, like I said, there's not a lot of guys who want to take on full time having that. Yes, you do have a set group, but most of them, they're not wanting to do that. If they literally said, listen, you're going to go over there in 3 weeks, they'll be calling them like, hey, we got to work something else out.
It should be.
They just aren't nurturers by nature.
I'm saying it needs to be evaluated case by case, but that we shouldn't have the defaults that we have, right? It's a tough topic. Child support is definitely a tough topic, but I think what a lot of the issues that we have surrounding child support is just due to a lack of resources in general, right? When you're within like inflation, the way that it is, you have a median income of, 55 grand a year, right? If you're taking 35% of that 55, if the guy can make that in areas like where I live, the median income's half that, right? It's not 55 here. It's more like 25, right? So if a guy's making 25 grand a year or 30 grand a year and then goes in front of the court takes 35% of that, how is he supposed to survive? He can't survive. He can't pay child support and also survive. And so that's what I mean about the idea that the court should say, okay, are you capable? The first question should be, are you capable of having this child 50% of the time? And if you are, then okay, we come to an agreement where you have the child 50% of the time. If you aren't, and I'm with you on a lot of guys will prove that they're not capable of that, but they should be given the opportunity. And if they fail, then you should put child support in place. But I know that from my personal experience, I encourage my co-parent to go get jobs where she can get tips, because I know that they can't take tips from child support, right? I know that they can't. And I want her to thrive. I want her to do well, right? I would prefer for her to be able to take my children 50% of the time so that I can, again, going back to looking in the mirror and trying to improve myself, right? If the co-parent can take the children 50% of the time, boy, my earning power just went through the roof, because now I have a lot of free times on my hand, right? And it's just some people don't seem to be reasonable enough to understand these concepts.
But that's why they say, too, you shouldn't have children unless you are financially able to provide for them. It's kind of like buying a house with someone. And I've said this before, too. Make sure you can afford to live and pay this mortgage on your own before you go in with it with someone else. Because what happens if they get up tomorrow and say, hey, I'm out of here?
Yeah.
But most people don't wait until they're financially capable and are able. Children are not cheap. They're getting more expensive by the year. Just one child is expensive. So that's another thing. That's a consequence of not thinking ahead. You're just living in the moment. And it can, that these are the consequences. They don't think about it. They don't think about who they're procreating with. They always wait until after say, I didn't know they was like this. Yes, you did. You just ignored the red flags and you proceeded to get this person knocked up, or they proceeded to let you knock them up. And it's like, now you guys are in this situation where you can't even stand each other.
Right.
And these are the consequences to life.
Yeah.
This is
So
what
I
happens.
just want to take a second to acknowledge Krista's comment here. I pay child support for my oldest to her father. Personally, I think because he gave her the card, I don't mind. It is her spending money basically at this point, as she knows it's from mom. She knows it's from mom. That's great. That's great. Krista is a big fan of yours. So telling you to keep preaching. So somebody said, if you can't afford the mortgage, don't buy the house. Yeah, that's true. But
It's a
kids,
sticky situation.
wish kids were more like a mortgage, but they're not.
Yeah, because most people, it's that
happen.
15-30, you still kind of stuck for a long time. So they are like a house. It's an investment.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move in and invite people to call in here. Hopefully it works if we do get a call. Hopefully IKEA can hear the caller and all that good stuff. We'll see. So here we go. Okay, and for those of you that maybe didn't have time to write that down, I'm going to go ahead and pull this banner up here. The number's 804-601-0002. If you want to call in and talk to us, we're open. And in the meantime, IKEA, me and you are going to talk about a timeline for introducing kids. You made a point on the last episode about not thinking that people, you said children shouldn't be introduced to every single person that you meet. And I agree with that in theory. I do take, what's the word? I don't necessarily, sometimes I think people put timelines on this when they shouldn't. And I think that they judge other people based on their own timelines of when they think it's appropriate and when it's not. And I know single parents have a lot of obstacles and struggles when it comes to dating already as it is. So, especially if you have young kids, if you're a single parent and you want to date somebody on a Friday night, it's not always as simple as just going out to the movies and getting something to eat, because not everybody has parents or a co-parent or somebody to take the kids so that you can do that. So the kids are there with you. The only way that you're really going to be able to get to know someone is to get to know them with the kids around. It's just a sad fact of being a single parent. Mm-hmm. So you want to argue? You got a point? Okay. Yep. All right, bring it.
I think they should not be introduced within the first 6 months of you talking to that person. And here's why. Yeah, I'm saying 6 months, because 6 months is usually when you start to see the real side of people. It's about the 6, 7 months, maybe the 8th month that they can hold out a little longer. But because, when you first meet someone, they're not giving you everything about them. They're not showing you everything, because, you got to see people through seasons before you get serious. But when it comes to children, and here's the thing, who says you can't date at the park? Take the kids to the park. You guys are just two bystanders on the same bench, and y'all are, just drinking tea or slushies, whatever. The kids are out there playing, so they're away from the situation. They don't know this lady or this guy.
Yeah, and that's the point that I'm making. First of all, I don't believe in putting a timeline on it. I think a timeline gives other people, basically they feel like they can judge people. If you draw a line in the sand and say this is the appropriate time and this is not the appropriate time, then anybody that finds themselves in a situation that doesn't fit the appropriate time criteria, they're now all of a sudden being judged because they're bringing their kids around people before the appropriate time. And I don't think that relationships are that simple, right? I think when you are going to get serious with someone, the people in that relationship know. but the rest of the world really, they're not privy to that information. And so when you say 6 months, that's the timeline. I just don't.
You ain't got to tell them that, though. So that's the thing. You don't tell them
Here's what I'm
that.
saying. As a single parent, you have to understand, how am I supposed to get to know someone when my kids are with me all the time? How am I supposed to get to know them if they can't come around my kids and my kids are with me all the time?
What we're doing like this.
Yeah,
Get out your laptop,
exactly.
turn that camera on, and you better have virtual dates like that.
Now listen, here's my take, though. Here's my take, okay? You don't have to introduce everybody to your children as your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or, hey, here's your stepdaddy, right?
No, of course not.
There's nothing wrong with having somebody come over to watch a movie and saying, this is my friend, right? They're children. They don't need to be developing a relationship with this person. You're trying to. They don't.
Are you putting your arm around her, though?
Not with the kids around.
Okay. Or y'all sitting on separate couches, chairs?
No, it's just a friend. It's just a friend.
But kids these days know the difference.
When the kids go to sleep or whatever, then you have a little more time to get to know each other. But this idea that you got to put a number on it, and I gotta tell you, it's women judging other women. This is the conversation.
Men do it too.
Women judging other women for this. It's crazy. Like when I stitched your comment from when I stitched the podcast, basically, that little snippet where you said that, and I sort of said I agree, but I disagree. The women just pouring in there. Some of them said 6 months. Some of them said a year. I mean, they're very, very passionate about this. And it cracks me up because it's like, it's women judging other women. That's what it is.
It's a season because you have to see people in seasons to see who they really are. They could tell, like I said, a person could say they're fine with you having kids. They could say that from a distance, but up close and actually being a part of their lives, that's a different thing. That's why I say you have to kind of observe. But at the same time, too, 6 months, I mean, to me, it's still kind of early because what seasons are you really going to see in 6 months?
Right.
You know, summer now and fall kind of fall in the same thing. It's still 90 degrees outside in September. So if we start, dating in March and then about that time we get to June and I'm letting you see what I'm saying? Like we ain't really went. I want to make sure that because you got the best interest of the child. Sometimes not even as a friend should they be introduced.
Yeah, but you have to understand too that sometimes the people that we're dating are not strangers to us. Right. And so we might have started talking to them, but we know who they are and we have mutual friends and it's not as if these are complete strangers that we don't know. Right. And what if a guy comes around that maybe and I'm just a hypothetical here for the woman. What if a guy comes around and he has a great job and he's excellent with the kids and he checks all the boxes? Right. But you have this 6-month rule in place and you never get to develop that relationship with him and you miss out on that because you what? Because you have
if he doesn't respect that I'm a parent first, then
6
there's
months?
an issue already because if I'm expressing to him like, listen, I'm a mom, I have kids or children, right? And I'm being careful and very selective about who my children meet. Okay, because you're a spiritual being just like they are. So y'all are gonna have to exchange energies, and I'm looking at it on a spiritual level.
The guy's great with the kids. He's great.
But if we look at the news, some people who were great with kids, there's been some sad situations that came out of that. So that's why I'm saying what we know today. You got to be careful about it. Yes, they can be nice and y'all can get along, but that we could be great for each other, but you may not be great for my child.
I can agree with that 100%. I'm just saying that it's this notion that you can't
see
get
them through seasons to make sure. because kids get attached.
We already, as single parents, we already have so much up against us. We don't need other people judging us.
We're not. No, I'm not judging. I'm saying, but
I'm not
my
saying you
opinion,
are,
I
but I'm
would do
just
that.
saying in general, the last thing that we need is people running around, judging us for just literally trying to get to know someone so that we're not, alone our whole life. Like, and that's what I'm saying. In the event that you've used the phone a lot and you're pretty sure that you found someone and you're ready to elevate and take it to the next level, right? There shouldn't be people on the outside trying to inform when that's appropriate, when it's not. It's none of their.
But you don't listen to nobody that don't pay bills in your house. That's the first step.
Well, you'd be surprised how many people try to have an opinion.
They're going to do that. Rather you take their advice or you throw it back at them, whatever you do. Anybody who ain't paying bills in your house don't tell you how to run your household or how to raise your kids. That ain't taking care of them. That's the first thing. So that whole part about that outside your box, you ain't got nothing to do with mine. I ain't got nothing. You worry about what's on your porch. I'll worry about what's on mine. So the internet gonna talk regardless. But I just think, yes, being careful. And then, there is that platform called care.com, nanny.com. Get a babysitter that has had a background check. Y'all could go in on it together if they got kids.
Money for that. Get out of here.
I'm just saying, there's some teenager that wants to make $20 on the weekend to go to the movies, to where you can steal in a little quiet time together, or to go on a walk, whatever you want to do. Or, like I said, do park dates. Especially if they have kids. What kids don't like going to the park? So while they're playing and you're watching them, y'all could be sitting there and getting to know each other more.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
And then you got to remember, kids, like I said, they're very intelligent these days. They'll walk and say, that must be your girlfriend. She your girlfriend? Are you going to marry my dad?
Say no. No, it's just my friend.
Yeah, so they're going to know anyway. They're going to say, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
We're in that age where they're figuring it out, So.
All right. Well, I don't think we're going to get a call in. Maybe we're going to keep trying until we get somebody to call us every week. So I think that's probably not going to happen. But I think it's been a good episode. And always remember, Monday mornings, there will be a new audio copy of this podcast out on your favorite audio platform, preferably Spotify. And thanks for watching the X's podcast.
Yep. See y'all next Sunday.
Okay. Who Day?
We're going to the Super Bowl. Get your orange stripes out and ready to go.